And we're back. How's everybody doing, YouTube? We're back with another reaction here on Between the Lines. Last reaction we did was to Audit the Audit. We did a couple of Audit the Audits, and we did the Star Spangled Banner, as you've never seen it before.
I had a reaction to my Mexican food. Does that count?
So go back and check out some of our old videos. If you like the reaction videos, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button down below, make some comments during the video, tell us how we're doing, what we could do better, so on and so forth. Today, we have another one from Audit the Audit. If you didn't see the thumbnail, if you didn't read the title, we are doing Audit the Audit. And today we have cops bust into the wrong house and refuse to leave. This one is going to go over Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights probable cause and some other things along those lines. So without further ado, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let's get into this video. This is Audit the Audit and cops bust into the house and refuse to leave.
Welcome to Audit the Audit, where we sort out the who and what and the right and wrong of police interactions. This episode covers 911 calls, the emergency aid doctrine, and private exigent circumstances, and is brought to us by Brian B's channel. Be sure to check out
Brian B.
The credit that they deserve. On December 19th, 2020, Officer Macmillan and Officer Hibbets of the North Brunswick Police Department responded to a 911 hang-up call that allegedly originated from the home of an individual who has only identified himself as Brian B. The officers knocked on Mr. B's door and began to question him regarding the call, while Mr. B recorded the interaction through the screen door.
Can I help you? Can I help you?
Yeah. Everything all right?
Everything's fine.
Call.
From here?
Yeah. Are you the only one home?
No.
Who else is home with you?
My girlfriend and my roommate.
All right.
Everybody's fine.
All right. Well,
Nobody called.
Somebody called and they said it came back to this address, and it said they told us there was yelling or something in the background initially. Then they hung up and they haven't been able to get in touch with everyone since. So that's why we're here.
Nobody called. Everybody's fine.
All right. Can we talk to them real quick?
No.
No, we need to.
Well, you're not.
We need to.
It's not gonna happen.
You're not understanding how this works. We got a 911 call from this address.
Nobody called 911.
How do I know that?
Do I have to prove something to you right now?
Yes. We have to speak with everyone who lives here to make sure they didn't call 911.
Stop right there. False. Just because there was a 911 call to the house does not mean that you have to let them enter your house. If they were really that worried about what's going on in the house, they would have come with a warrant. Go get a warrant, then you can search my house.
The officers state that they need to speak with everyone who lives with Mr. B in order to confirm that they did not call 911. In general, the Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination protects individuals against compelled speech to police officers.
You gotta love
and
these
only judges have the authority to order an individual to answer a question. This means that Mr. B and the individuals in his home have a constitutional right to remain silent and do not have to answer any questions from police officers, even if they are responding to a 911 call. However, a court would likely find that the officers were within their authority to confirm that the other members of the household were not responsible for the 911 call, and that the officers were not required to take Mr. B at his word. According to Section 2.64.020 of the New Brunswick Municipal Code, the police department has both the power and the duty to protect life and property, prevent crime, and detect and arrest offenders against the penal laws and ordinances effective within the city. Similarly, in the 2012 case of State versus Edmonds, the Supreme Court of New Jersey concluded that police officers were empowered and duty-bound to enter an apartment to check on a resident when responding to a 911 call reporting a domestic violence issue. Even though the alleged victim of the incident, who met the officers outside her apartment, did not exhibit any injuries and denied that there was any problem, the court held that, quote, the officers were not required to give uncritical acceptance to her denials or honor her objections that they not enter her home, given that her 11-year-old son was inside and might be endangered. The police had a duty to look behind the denials by Ms. Richardson while her son remained potentially in jeopardy in the apartment. Therefore, although the other individuals in Mr. B's residence could not be forced to speak to the police, as we will discuss later in this episode, a court would likely conclude that the officers could enter the residence to check on their well-being.
As soon as we speak with everyone,
I disagree with that,
everything's
but
fine, we leave. That's it, man. We just make sure everything's fine.
What's your name and badge number?
Macmillan 182.
Name and badge number. Right there? Is that what you told me?
Why are you giving us such a problem?
Well, because you're over here shining a flashlight in my apartment. You're over here shining a flashlight. Let me finish what I was saying. Into my apartment. I'm in here taking care of Christmas gifts, watching the UFC fight. You guys come over here banging like a bunch of animals. No one called 911. You're giving me a hard time. You're still shining a flashlight at me. Turn your flashlight off. Turn your flashlight off.
You're not understanding how this works, man.
Have a nice night, guys.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
No.
They said there was a 911. From whose cell phone? What cell phone number? Do y'all have it on record or file or anything?
732 940 76.
94076.
Not my number.
Whose number is that?
It's not mine.
732-40.
Mine's just 848-466.
No one's phone number here.
All right, let's get this sorted out then, so we don't have to come back. All right?
What do you want to sort out? What have we not sorted out?
It's a landline, okay?
Okay, no, there's no landline here.
But there's still one registered to this house.
So what do you want me to do for you?
So there, we solved with a 911.
Okay, so get the out now. No, sir. You just slammed the door at me. Get the out of the house.
You don't close the door on the police.
I don't give a You have no
You
right
don't
to
close
enter.
the door on the police.
No, you don't. It's a warrantless entrance, so get the out.
Mr. B tries to end the conversation, but the officers do not allow him to close his door, forcing their way into his apartment instead. While warrantless entries by police such as this are presumed to be an unreasonable search under the Fourth Amendment, as the Supreme Court explained in the 2011 case of Kentucky versus King, this presumption may be overcome in some circumstances, including, quote, when the exigencies of the situation make the needs of law enforcement so compelling that a warrantless search is objectively reasonable under the Fourth Amendment. The court then went on to describe several categories of exigent circumstances where warrantless entry to a residence was reasonable, including the emergency aid exception, which allows officers to, quote, enter a home without a warrant to render emergency assistance to an injured occupant or to protect an occupant from imminent injury. Some courts that have reviewed the issue have determined that a 911 hang-up and an unanswered return call from the emergency dispatcher is sufficient to allow officers to enter a home without a warrant under the emergency aid exception.
I mean, I could see that. I'm going to pause it. I could see that, but my my problem with that is that, well, all right, I'll give that maybe their original entry into the house was legitimate for them trying to figure out what's going on, but now they've talked to everybody in the house. They have established that there's no landline there, so that there couldn't have been a 911 call from that house. What are we still talking about here? There's no more exigent circumstances. They can see that there's nothing going on. At this point, he's well within his rights to tell them to get out of his house. So I don't understand. I guess I don't understand, why the cops are so insistent on staying. I don't understand that.
Disagree. However, in the 2004 case of State versus Frankel, the New Jersey Supreme Court adopted a totality of the circumstances standard to determine whether a 911 hang-up call allows officers to enter a home without a warrant, explaining that, quote, the emergency aid doctrine only requires that public safety officials possess an objectively reasonable basis to believe, not certitude, that there is a danger and need for prompt action. The police officer at the door, of course, cannot know what type of emergency, if any, lies inside. All he knows is that the caller has dialed an emergency response number. In light of the presumptive emergency, we cannot conclude that the officer is bound to ignore the warning and walk away. The court also concluded that, quote, a 911 call is tantamount to a distress call, even when there is no verbal communication over the telephone to describe the nature of the emergency. The responding police officer is not required to accept blindly the explanation for the 911 call offered by the resident answering the door, but must base his decision on the totality of the circumstances. Given the direct New Jersey precedent on this issue, it is likely that a court would uphold the constitutionality of the officer's decision to force entry into Mr. B's home. Nonetheless, if a similar incident were to occur in a different jurisdiction, a court could reach the opposite conclusion.
Get out.
What's your name, sir?
Get out. I'm not giving you nothing. Get out.
We need your name.
Yeah, you're not going to get it. Get out. Have I committed a crime? Am I suspected of committing a crime? I have a Fourth Amendment right, bro. Don't trample my rights. You're not going to get ID.
Sir, you two have a right.
Let's go.
We need your name so we can
Not
record.
going to get it.
You want us to record that we were out here, what happened?
Not going to get it.
Okay, so when they call 911 again, you want them to come knocking on your door again. I want to record that we came here, we spoke with you, we confirmed that everyone in the house.
Not going to get it.
Nobody's number.
Not going to give it.
That is no longer associated with
Not
this
going
address.
to give you my information because of what you did with the door. Take your pompous, both of you, get out of the house.
Once the officers become aware that the 911
Nice
call
freeze.
originated from a landline, there are no landlines at Mr. B's address, they ask Mr. B for his name to document the situation, but Mr. B refuses and demands that the officers leave his residence. New Jersey does not have a stop and identify statute that would require Mr. B to identify
that where this
himself
is, New
under any
Jersey?
circumstances, so he was not under any legal
Can you not
obligation
tell
to
by
provide
the
officers
politeness
with
of the
right
person
identification.
occupying
Yeah,
the abode?
I was
Likely
gonna
within his
say.
rights to ask the officers to leave his property, as the potential emergency.
I mean, this guy screams Jersey.
This doesn't strike me as North Dakota.
Yeah.
In the Edmonds case,
This
that
guy
we discussed
screams
earlier
Jersey.
in this episode, the court stated that, quote, when the exigency that justifies immediate action dissipates, the rationale for searching without a warrant is no longer present. Other courts around the country have reached similar conclusions about the limitations of the exigent circumstances exception to the warrant requirement. For example, in the 2006 case of U.S. versus Lawrence, the District Court for Minnesota held that, quote, although the public safety exception to the warrant requirement permitted the officers to enter the home for the limited purpose of checking on the safety of those in the home, the exigent circumstances that allowed the officers to enter the home ceased to exist once the officers verified that there was no one else in the home, injured or hiding. Similarly, in the 2006 case of Higdon versus Wells County Sheriff's Office, the Northern District of Indiana held that, although officers were initially justified in entering a home under the exigent circumstances doctrine, quote, once officers secured the home and located all the persons therein capable of destroying evidence, the exigency ceased to exist, and they were required to wait for a warrant to continue their search. Accordingly, a court could conclude that the exigent circumstances that allowed the officers to enter Mr. B's residence no longer existed once they determined that the call did not come from that location, and that the officers' continued presence in Mr. B's home violated the Fourth Amendment.
That's it. You me the f- off when you tried trampling in here. You banging on the door like a bunch of animals. Came in here trying to throw your fictitious authority around.
like the Jersey
walking
Shore.
in my house without a warrant. Get the out, both of you.
We need your name, sir.
I'm not giving you nothing. Get out. I'm not answering any questions. Please get out of my house.
You understand why we're here, right?
I don't care why you're here. Get the f-
Now
out.
they have 4 cops.
Now there's
Turn
4.
that off.
So
Turn that light off.
Let me explain this to you.
Jesus Christ. There you go. You see. How many of you does it take to see? What do you want to look
Can I
at?
explain something to you?
I don't want to hear what you have to
You
say.
have people you care about.
I don't
right?
care. Please exit my house.
Do you have people you care
Please
about?
exit my house.
Sir.
Can they shut the door? Get
You're
them out of my
not
house?
gonna shut the door with me again.
Well, then I got nothing to say to you.
This is my boss, sir.
Keep him away from me.
What's going on?
I don't want you touching me,
We
dude.
don't know what's going on, sir.
Yeah, this is all.
That's why I
Just
came in
sitting
just
here,
to-
gotta bang on the door.
I have an internal affairs complaint on one of the sergeants, and now this happens. This is retaliatory. This is another one going to internal affairs. I'm telling you. You guys don't know how to.
So he's
Quit.
had previous
I need you.
experiences with these people.
Lady, what's going on?
I want you guys to leave. I don't care.
Explain it to you.
They don't care.
Technically, what you did could have been obstruction. They're here on a lawful police
What did he say?
Then
It
take
could be
me
obstruction.
for it. I want you to take me for it.
I didn't observe it, but from what they're telling me. I'm just telling you technically it is, okay?
Then let's go. I'll take it to court. I'm not. You. None of you are gonna scare
Now
me and bully
there's
me. None
one-
of you. You
hold on.
guys
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cops.
try it all the time. It's not gonna work.
Were they
What do
bored?
you have to say that's gonna justify any of this? I want to hear it.
We came out here to investigate a 911 hang-up.
Okay. Did anybody call? Have you figured that out?
We have it.
Okay. So
He's
what
not
do you have
wrong.
to figure out? What do you have to figure out?
If anybody was in need of assistance.
No.
Does anybody need assistance?
I have zero need for assistance.
Perfect.
I'm trying to go back and finish watching this
In
movie.
fact,
Alright.
So can you please Please, okay, please go. Have a good day. Take care.
After Mr. B ordered the officers to leave his property, more officers began to appear on the scene until a total of 9 officers
Oh,
were
wow.
inside the residence.
That's
or on the
ridiculous.
doorstep.
Why did they
Eventually,
have to
the
call all
officers did
those
leave,
cops?
But according to Mr. B, he received an obstruction ticket in the mail that required Mr. B to pay attorney fees, fines, and court costs. Although it is unclear whether Mr. B plans to pursue legal action regarding the incident, he has created a GoFundMe
Obstruction?
campaign to fund his
He
legal
obstructed
defense
them
regarding
from...
When he shut the door,
Overall,
technically it
the
was
North
obstruction.
Brunswick
I will
officers
say
get
that.
C-.
When he tried to
Because
shut the
although
door.
they were likely within their authority to enter and make contact.
I
with
definitely
other
think they
residents
should have got a
of Mr.
lower
B's home,
grade than
they
a
also
C-.
unnecessarily compelled Mr. B to provide his identifying information and remained inside Mr. B's residence well after the exigency and reasonableness of their suspicions were dispelled. One of the officers claims that they need to get Mr. B's information in case another 911 call is made from the same number. However, Mr. B was under no legal obligation to provide his identifying information, given the fact that the officers were well aware that the 911 call did not originate from Mr. B's address. It is difficult to understand why
All they had to
couldn't
do is
document that
apologize. Hey, I'm
information with the
sorry,
address
we...
alone.
Yep.
If the
Guess
officers
this was
had
a
received
mistake.
another
We'll be on our
911
way.
call from the phone number, they now had enough information.
But they
to
were,
conclude that it did
in
not
my opinion, they were asserting their authority.
Yeah.
They were saying, we're going to be in your house. We can be in your house, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Exactly.
It started off with 2 cops and ended with 9.
He kept saying it, though. It's like, you don't know how this works.
Yeah.
It's like, I do know how it works.
Yeah.
You stay on the other side of my door.
Exactly. That's exactly how this works.
Originate from Mr. B's address without needing his
At what
identifying
point,
information.
you pause
The
it for a
officers-
second. At what point did the police become an invader?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
I get it. I get it. I was wrong. I'll say it. I was wrong at the beginning. If the police get a 911 hang up and they come to the house, they don't have to take the person's word for it at the house. The guy shouldn't have shut the door in their face. That could be considered obstruction. I think he's going to take it to court, and he'll probably be found not guilty, to be honest with you, if a judge looks at the totality of the circumstances.
I think
here.
he should have calmed his ass down a little bit when he was dealing with them. That might have diffused some of it. I mean, I think the fact that he, like, right off the bat fired. Well, he even said it later on. It's like, I already have an issue with, so he already had a run-in with this department for something. So there's no explanation as to what that was.
Yeah,
So,
there's nothing. There's been no follow-up or anything like that, so I could see. But originally, this guy was in the wrong. But the obstruction charge, I think, is bullshit, and I think a judge would, if a judge looked at the totality of the circumstances, would throw it out.
Refusal to
It's a flex.
That's exactly when 9 cops.
Yeah, it's a flex.
When the first 2 knew right away that there was nothing going
As
on.
though their reluctance to leave was driven by their insistence on drafting a police report about the incident. Citizens are under no legal obligation to ensure that department policy is fulfilled in the course of an officer's duty, and it is extremely difficult to rationalize the notion that filling out a police report was more important than preserving Mr. B's Fourth Amendment protections. Citizens should never be presented with consequences for not aiding officers in completing their departmental requirements. This is yet another interaction that highlights the unsavory results of equating departmental policy to legal obligations, and officers and departments would do well in recognizing that fulfilling the bureaucratic requirements of their policies is not the sole priority of law enforcement. Mr. B gets a B, because although his hostile demeanor was somewhat justified by the North Brunswick officer's refusal
I'll
to
agree
leave
with
his
that.
property, he made a concerted effort to block their entry when the officers likely had a legal basis for entering, displayed a fundamental misunderstanding of reasonable suspicion and exigent circumstances, and failed to invoke his right to remain silent. There is no doubt
certainly
that the
did
majority
not
of Mr. B's
remain
hostility
silent.
was driven by the officer's conduct, and it is relatively clear that this interaction could have been resolved more peacefully if the officers had vacated the scene in a timely manner. There is certainly an argument to be made that the officers
surprised the
violated
phrase
Mr. B's Fourth
GTL
Amendment
didn't
rights
come
by
up at
remaining
some
on the
point.
property
Gym
without
tan
a
laundry.
legitimate basis for doing so. And Mr. B was well within his rights to order the officers to leave his home. All that said, the New Jersey Supreme Court has directly ruled that officers do not need absolute certainty.
New Jersey's
that
a
imminent
messed
danger
up
exists
state.
in
to
order
live
Really
in. I'm
is.
sorry, but
It really
His
is.
initial
No
denial of
offense
entry
to
was
those that
likely
live in
frowned
New
upon
Jersey.
by a New Jersey court.
There's some nice parts of
Almost
New Jersey,
anyone
but
would likely have a hostile reaction to members of law enforcement.
Yeah,
who
it's
refuse
beautiful
to
when you're
leave
leaving.
private property after discovering that no criminal
I lived
activity
next to it for
but it is extremely
20 plus
important to
years.
bear
I
in
spent a
mind
lot
that
of time in
words and
Jersey as a
actions
kid.
will reflect
Ocean
who a
City,
judge or
Atlantic
jury
City,
appears if the case reaches a courtroom.
little
Invoking the right to
areas in
silence
that
is
general
not only
vicinity.
a powerful tool because of the legal
I had
protections
family
that
there.
the Fifth Amendment offers, but it can also shield an individual from any personal bias that may arise from the individuals participating within that system. While I do commend Mr. B for
That's good enough.
Yeah.
I think we get the point of that one. Go ahead, check out Audit the Audit's channel. He's got a lot of good stuff out there. That's really, I really like the way that he breaks down the videos. My takeaway from this video would be don't talk to the police.
Yeah.
Really, he should have answered the door, asked for a warrant. If they would have insisted that they come inside, I would have called everybody in the house down to the door with them still outside and said, look, everyone's fine. This is everyone that's in the house. Are you guys all okay? Do you all call a 911? No? Okay. Have a nice day. And then they wouldn't have been in my house, and I would have been, at that point, I would have been able to shut the door, and there's nothing they could do.
Do the police pull on occupancy records to know how many people are actually in the house?
Probably not.
Like,
I would say they don't have access to that.
Like, when they say, can we see everybody in the house? How do you know how many people are in the house?
Yeah, if he would have said, if he would have said I was alone, I mean, he would have been lying to police, but they would have had to take him for his word. No, I'm alone here.
But based off of their reactions, they probably wouldn't have.
Yeah, no,
they would have still found their
I'm
way.
alone here, and then he would have gotten a false statement to police charge. But takeaway from this is never talk to police. Always ask for a warrant. Get a lawyer.
He should have been Mr. Proctor. Mr. Proctor,
exactly.
From the previous. Just sat there,
just gangster style. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Let us know how we're doing. Comment down below whether you agree with the outcome, and whether what you would have done differently in this case, in the case of Mr. Jersey versus the Popo. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Bye.